It was really meaningful with Naranjo's work with the subtypes because he only had a few of the archetypes. So when I met him in 1996, that was the same time he validated my research, because I had at that point like over 2.5 years of research. And he had asked Jack Labanuskas to have me bring it because Jack said, "Oh, Katherine will be in your course." And he said, "Well, is that the person that did the article with Enneagram Monthly on image presentation and style?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, that's her." And then Jack, being curious, said, "Well, can you look at her work and see if she's gotten it right?" And he said, "Sure." Well, I gave him my book, and the night we started, and the next morning he came in and he said, "I'm going to change the topic. I'm going to teach the Enneagram, but I'm going to include the instinctual subtypes based on Katherine's book. It validated that the work came from me, but would I include his assessment in my book?" I immediately went back and I met him in April. By May, I had the book revised and his qualities added. But at the same time, I had asked him if there were countertypes for all the types, because that's what I had found, that they were in a stacking order. And he said, "Oh, people always ask me that if there's a counterphobic 1 or a counterphobic 2, and I go, "No, I'm not talking about phobic. I'm talking about countertype." And for example, the counter NV4. And he said he hadn't thought about it. But during that training, we compared notes. Everyone went and copied my book, my subtype book, and we combined the training so that the subtypes reflected his teachings and they were validated by my research, so it worked perfectly. But there are actually, in that stacking order, some people have a negative identification about social. They had bad experiences growing up socially. And so they think they're not a social, but they could be. They're just antisocial. And then there's some people positively identified and want the groups and to do things with others. And then the third quality is neutral. People that maybe are positive and negative, but not really one or the other. And then you just stack all three of them and you get not only the stacking order that you use those instincts and the stacking order that you use your types in the tritype, and then it works really perfectly to create this dimensional aspect. And from there, because most of the people teaching the Enneagram in 1996 did not know about subtypes because they had come down through the Jesuits. And so it was just, Naranjo wasn't teaching it yet. And as a result, then when people in that first conference with the IEA, the first IEA conference, we discovered that that was a key feature, that if someone was emotional, they were made a 4, but maybe they were just the sexual instinct and not a 4. Or since, of course, I found that they usually have 4 in the tritype, so that became very important. But it expanded everything. And then I went all over the country teaching people based on my research on the subtypes, because Don and Rusty learned from me. And then I think in like 95, and then they started teaching it as part of their part 3, which changed, but back in 1995. So it was like 98, I believe, that they started teaching subtypes, but called them variants, because Don already had the term subtypes as the wing types. And that's why there's 2 words, variants and subtypes. And it just kind of made things cohesive. So what seemed like right or wrong ended up being right if you put it together and it worked.